Donna. I cannot tell you how excited we are to have Maria back in SAC. It's terrific that she came here. On her world book tour, she picked Sacramento. Can you tell I'm in PR? Okay. I want to say on behalf of She Shares, thank you for being here. We want to thank our co-host, the California Women Leadership California, and the Women's Caucus, 58 women in the legislature. I also want to tell you that She Shares was inspired by Maria Shriver. As a founder with Karen Skelton and Tina Thomas, Karen had the brilliant idea to host an event up here in Sacramento featuring high-profile women and women of all sorts from all over to talk about their experiences and also to start a mentorship program. But it was inspired by Maria Shriver in the Women's Conference. So it's great that she's here today to be in conversation with one of our co-founders, Karen Skelton. Who's terrific. And how about a big Sacramento welcome for Maria Shriver.
Before we start, I just wanted to say how deeply grateful I am to be here, home. And I was thinking about Sacramento when I was, I started thinking about it this morning when I woke up. And I started thinking about it again when I flew over the fields to come here. And I thought about the first time I came here. And I came here, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never been a first lady before. I had 4 young children, 2 aging parents, and I was married to someone who said he was going to be the governor. He had no idea what he was doing either. So the 2 of us came here completely acting confident, but really having no clue. And I really was a stranger to myself, a stranger to this town. I knew nobody here. The first person I met was Donna. And she said, I'm going to show you around, but don't get used to me because I'm not going to work for you. And then she became my chief of staff. And I think the second person I met was Karen, who said, I'm definitely not working for you. I don't want to come into this office at all. And we worked together the entire time. And I come back here now really totally at home in myself. Totally feeling at home here, loving the people that I met here, that I got to work with here, that I made really lifelong friends in the First Lady's office. And I feel so deeply grateful to be at this moment in my life, in this church, with all of you, and in conversation with one of my best friends on the planet. And I just want to say thank you for being with me at this moment. I feel very much at home.
Aww. Welcome back, First Lady. So that's a great way to start the conversation, because as I was reading this amazing book, I mean, it is amazing. I know that, most people don't say, I'm going to go buy a poetry book, but everyone needs to read this book, and especially people who have gone through things in their lives like we have.
Right.
Everybody has gone through things in their lives, and you have really just blown it out of the water with this book, and it is fantastic. And I want to just acknowledge that it's a great Christmas gift. But I want
wait till Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Retro Valentines. But let's start with you as First Lady, because it dawned on me as I was reading the book that a lot of the heartbreak that you were experiencing in your life happened when you were First Lady.
Your mother's health was beginning to decline. I remember she came to the women's conference and she broke her hip, and and I remember Tom Brokaw saying to me, one of your guests that year, that's when it really starts beginning to go down, and people don't return from those kinds of things as they age. Your father's Alzheimer's was deepening. Your children were aging and starting to go on out of the house. NBC had pulled the rug out from under you. You lost your career. Your family life was unraveling. Yet, you were the first lady in this extraordinary way. You created this little women's conference. You created the first cabinet for volunteers. You delivered programs to the poor through the EITC tax credit. How many people here, just for fun, worked with Maria or some part of Maria's programs while she was First Lady? Just raise your hand if you have. I mean, it's incredible how many people have worked for you. Yet, your life was crumbling underneath. How do you resolve that? How do you explain to us who you were then, inside and out?
Well, I think actually that's not where my heartbreak began. And I think to really understand your life, you want to go back to the beginning of your life. And I would think that really my heartbreak started in large part with politics. And I think that it's really challenging to be in a political family, no matter what family you're in. And it's kind of submerged in politics. And politics for me took my mother. Politics took both of my uncles. And, in one way or another, it felt like it took Arnold. I think it's all encompassing, right? But I think in writing this book, I went back so that I could go forward to try to understand, like, where does anybody's heartbreak begin? It's never about one person. It's never about one incident. It's about understanding who you were as a child, who you were as a teenager, a young woman, a young mother, a first lady, and beyond. I think when I think back to my time as First Lady, I look at it as an extraordinary time in my life. I'm really proud of the work that we did. I'm proud of the work at the museum that we did, the conference, the programs that the conference was able to fund, the lives it was able to change. We connect. I think it was an extraordinary time in my life, a job I did not want at all. I came into this job kicking and screaming. Turned out to be probably the best job I'd ever had. And so that teaches me once again, that sometimes I don't know what's best for me. What's best for me is really what God, I feel, designs for me. And so I think that I was under the impression that I was trying to hold it together, by the way, as so many people do. So many people are working two jobs, raising small children, caregiving for parents with Alzheimer's, caregiving for mothers who have strokes, might have a child with special needs, might have a really busy partner trying to keep their marriage afloat. Pretty much everybody that I know in their late 40s and their 50s is in that grind in one way or another. So I thought I was kind of in that grind. And so I was also raised by a woman who was not into complaining, did not allow it, actually, in the house. So the person that was the First Lady was someone who was soldiering on, working as hard as I could, trying to do good, trying not to complain, keeping it together, and also really enjoying what I was doing. So I think, like so many people, you hold the paradox, right? You try to do the work you're enjoying really well, deal with the heartbreak by probably stuffing it down, denying it, compartmentalizing it, doing whatever you need to do to continue on. And so I think I was a multitude of things like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like this book, actually, because this book, when I went to do this book, the publisher was like, is it a poetry book? Is it a memoir? I was like, it's a little bit of everything, just like me. It's like all over the map. It's got reflections, it has a prologue, it's an epilogue, it's got poetry, and kind of what my daughter calls reporter poetry. And so it's distinctive, unique, and kind of out of bounds.
It is. It so reminds me of the Shriver reports where you're like, we got to have professional photography. We need to have quotes from LeBron James. We need to have like essays from really smart doctors. I'm like, that is not a book. People are like, what is that? You've always been a person who, and I know this comes from your family. It's like, there is no limit to what's possible.
I believe that, actually.
I know you do.
Yeah, I really believe that if you dream it, you can achieve it. And if you can envision it, you can make it happen. Sometimes it takes longer than what you anticipate.
Yeah.
But I do believe that with hard work, with vision, and coming back to who you are, you can kind of manifest almost anything.
Oh, believe me, I know that about you. I mean, we would be working on projects, and I know Matt Rollins is here, who is the color master, but you would like that. I think that if we really just get the right color, we can be a Pulitzer Prize winner. And we're like, we're going to do that. We're going to make that happen.
I love working with people like Karen and so many others in this room who look at something, and even if they think you're crazy, they just go, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think when you're trying to achieve a vision, when you're trying to do something, whether it's the Hall of Fame at the museum, or revitalize that, or do the women's conference. I remember when we started the Minerva Awards, I was like, these are going to be the biggest awards for women. This is the preeminent award for women in the country. And everybody's like, well, you haven't even given one out. How can you say that? I was like, I see it. I see it. And then I was like, this is going to be the biggest women's conference in the world. They're like, we don't even have anybody coming. I was like, I see it. I know it. So I think that's
so true.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go through life.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's why it's just so great to work with you. Okay, I want to turn back to your childhood.
Okay.
And I want just to pause for a second to get you there. There's everybody can see the cover of the book. And you chose, and I know this was a very intentional choice.
Yes, it was.
It probably took a very long time for you to decide what you wanted to put on the cover. And you wrote about this in Communion with You. You said, "You were the first to look me in my eyes, the first to connect to my soul. Even though there were no words, I knew you understood. Every time I saw your face, my heart skipped a beat. My breathing slowed. I didn't really know, but I felt in communion with you." So that's about your horse.
Yeah, people
Not about a man. So tell us why you picked that picture and what you were thinking, what that picture really means to you.
Well, that picture, I think we all walk through life wanting to be loved, wanting to feel seen, wanting to be understood. And this is the first, I want to say person, but this is an animal, obviously, but I felt seen by this horse named Miss Buck. This was my best friend. This was the person I spent most of my life with when I was young and growing up. This is the person or animal that I went to escape the chaos with, that never asked me what my name was, that never asked me which Kennedy was I, that never was disappointed by me, only overjoyed by me, and was quiet and offered me a place of my own. So this was an integral figure in my life and will always be. So I wanted her to be on the cover because I felt seen by her for who I was and who I wanted to be on the inside. And this was the first relationship that I had that I felt loved, secure, and seen.
And it's your email address. I won't say the other parts of it.
Oh my
but
God. I have kept that private for 20 years. Thank you. Okay.
Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that.
I can't either.
Anyway, let's move on. So there were actually, so Miss Buck was an escape in a lot of ways from what was happening in your house. And In the first 4 or 5 chapters of this book, you mention in almost every poem doors and the doors. So I want to just read a thing and ask you to comment on it.
Okay.
The padded door. The padded door, it stood guard, separating her from me. I can see it now so many years later. There actually were two doors that blocked my way. 2 doors with padded leather and studs and locks. 2 doors that kept out the noise. 2 doors that kept me from you.
Yeah, so that's how I grew up. My mother lived behind 2 padded doors, and I didn't question that. I have 4 brothers, I'm an only girl, and it wasn't until many years later that I thought, gosh, I wonder, do other people's mothers live behind 2 padded doors? And I couldn't find anybody. Since this book came out, I have found several, which is really interesting to me. Several people came up to me and said, I'm Irish Catholic and my mother had padded doors. I don't know what that says about the Irish Catholic, but I think my mother was, as you well know, the most important person probably in my life. She was my role model. She was fierce. She was a force of nature. And she lived behind padded doors, I believe, because she had so much grief. And there was society didn't have a language for grief when I was growing up. I don't think we talked about the ramifications of multiple deaths in a family. What does that do to the people that are left over? What does that do when you have multiple siblings die? I'd probably be behind padded doors too. As a child, you think perhaps the padded doors are keeping the person away from you. You don't understand about grief. You don't understand what all that means and how to manage all of that. And I have said that really, for me, I've come to understand my mother much more in death than in life. My mother was a ball of energy, moving very quickly through life. And even when she'd come visit me, we're in and out, we're moving, we're going. That's the way she kept ahead of her grief. That's the way she kept it at bay. And I think she's very typical of people of that generation. And I think that's how she was raised, that's how her parents operated. And I came to understand that, in fact, the first book I ever wrote was a book about grief. It was called What's Heaven, was a book for children and the questions that children have when somebody dies. And I pretended it was a children's book, it was, but it was really my own questions, because I grew up in a family that experienced a lot of tragedy and loss, but nobody discussed it. So I was constantly like, what is that? What do you say to children when someone passes away? How does one open the door to that conversation? And I think in many ways, I have been trying to open the door to all kinds of conversations in my life. That's why I went into journalism. I wanted to understand people's stories. I think that's why I wrote so many of the books that I've written. It's why I've gone on this journey to understand what doors I lived behind, what doors all of us live behind, which I understand. And so I see that was a hard poem to write, but I have great empathy for the woman that lived behind them. I have great compassion for the woman that lived behind them, that I know was doing the best that she could. And I'm sure that had I had her life, I probably also would have padded doors.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, in some ways, I know the doors were so much more than the fact that there were doors. I mean,
Right.
it means so much more. And
Right.
I wonder, there's a part of me that wonders, like the compassion you found in your relationship with your mother, I see in so many parts of your life, how you can balance 2 things without becoming emotionally on fire, right? Like, you married a Republican.
Yeah.
You know, your cousin is the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know he
I didn't know that. Oh my God.
is? He actually is. He's canceling all these things. Anyway,
Oh my.
another story.
Really?
But he's still your cousin. He's
Yeah.
not like some foreign object. You said in your interview with, you said in your interview with Oprah that Arnold is your friend, and you're really happy about that.
Yeah.
That you didn't want to live in a place where there was all this, this hatred or animosity or fear or all of this. And I wonder if that comes from the Doors in some way, that you found, or later as you found, you had to balance a lot. You had to like be happy as a child, but also it was really chaotic.
Yeah, but
What was
I've come
happening?
to understand that, one of the things that I've learned in my journey is that we're all dealing and balancing and holding a lot. I may be holding them on a different scale, or it may be happening publicly. But I think that I've met so many people through my journalism, through my advocacy, through my activism, who are managing way more than me and who are dealing with, all kinds of the same issues that I bring up in here. They're dealing with fear, they're dealing with chaos. They grow up in really challenging homes. They're dealing with challenging marriages. They're dealing with challenging children. They're, struggling with financial insecurity, all kinds of things that make life challenging. And I think we each have a choice, right, to step back and try to figure out how do we want to move through our lives. And I found myself asking myself that at different junctures in my life. And I certainly, when I was a young woman, I thought really, in a way, my life depended on getting away from my family, from my own survival, to try to understand who I was separate from this mass group of people. We did everything together. We ate together. We played together. We did camp together. We had the same hair, the same teeth. We talked the same. We held the same grudges. I was like 40 going, I'm furious. I hate this person. I don't even know why I hate them, I was like, my brother would say, we hate them. I'm like, okay, why? And he's like, I don't know. We just hate them. I'm like, okay. So that's the Irish Catholic thing. But I think that you, at some point, you have to decide kind of how you want to move through life.
Yeah.
And so for me, I met Arnold when I was 21. And I was looking to find somebody that was as different as I could find. And as my brother said, check, And I wanted somebody as far away from politics as I could find. Check. I moved to California. I married a Republican. I wanted to build my own life. I went into journalism, which for my family was the opposite side of the velvet rope, so to speak, trying to figure out how to carve out my path and still be a part of my family. That was the goal. And I think, when I got separated and eventually divorced, I had to stop and look at my life and realize that I had built a lot of it from the outside in. And that if I wanted to pick myself back up again and carry on, I'd have to go back to the beginning so that I could build a different kind of person from the inside out, that I wasn't running from anything anymore. I had to sit with something. I had to stay with someone. I had to allow everything I had pushed away to come up. And I think this is something that I, try to urge my children to do far earlier than I did. But just like the Women's Conference or the Minerva Awards or the museum, when I got separated, I was like, okay, I have a vision for where I want to go. I have a vision for the relationship I want to have with Arnold. I have a vision for my children. I have a vision for myself. And I went after all of that relentlessly. I sought out every healer, every shaman, every plant medicine thing, everything. And I, really went about trying to find my way home to myself because I had run.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not an unusual story.
Yeah.
And that's why I eventually decided to publish this, because every time I would show someone a poem, they would say, that's my story.
Yeah.
That makes me think about my life. That makes me think about me as a little boy or a little girl. That makes me think about my grief. And I believe that we will act differently in the public square if we could understand our grief. I think we would talk differently if we could understand our trauma. I think we would relate to one another differently if we understood that everybody has a padded door. And I'm really interested in a new society that is unlike what we're experiencing right now. And I'm interested in the conversations that the brokenhearted have.
Yeah. So a couple of things about, I mean, there's so much there. And the whole book, the poems are really there. You know, how do you put it back together? And I want you to read one of a piece of Fragments of Me, if you would. I brought your glasses.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You don't have to, I marked this part, but of course you wrote it, so you can read what you want.
You want me to just read this part? Okay, it's called Fragments of Me. I'll bounce around because I don't want to take the whole thing. They're everywhere, the fragments of me, in the closet, in the dresser, in the ceiling looking down. The fragments of me are all over the land. They're in Chicago, in Maryland, in the hall at my school, in my bedroom, where I broke into two. It's a mess, it's a shambles. You are here, you are there. Don't you see, don't you care that you're everywhere? It's up to you to piece together your life, up to you to make sense, up to you to go back to where it began. Go back to your birth, go back if you can, go back to Hyannis, go back to your room, go back. Tell him you knew and no longer feel shame. Tell her you love her and pray for her pain. Go back, pick up the pieces, make yourself whole. Go back to the fragments. They're the key to your soul.
Yeah.
I do. I think we all, you know, if you start going back and looking at your life, there are pieces of you. There's a huge piece of me here in Sacramento, right? I went on this book tour. I went to Philadelphia. There's a huge piece of me there. I started my journalism career there. I go into the building at NBC. There's a huge part of me there. I went to Washington, to Holy Trinity, to Georgetown, huge part of me there. I live in Los Angeles. There's a huge part of me there. So I think that when we go back and start looking at the pieces of our lives and how do we bring all the parts of ourselves, the child part, the teenage part, the young woman part, the terrified first lady part, the woman that's on the floor in the hotel part, the triumphant, aggressive, formidable part, and put them all around, and how do they work together? That's what's interesting to me.
Yeah. One thing you just said about Philadelphia, I just wanted to ask you about your journalism career, and what did you learn from that? What's the stuff you learned? I want to interject here that one thing that I learned from you about your journalism career when I've been able to hang out with you at, you know, backstage or when you're going on to do a hit or something, is how valuable time is. Because you would be going on the air in 3 minutes and you're like, I'm gonna call my mom. I'm like, you're going on in 3 minutes. You know, you like time on television that's so brief and you got so comfortable with it. That's just something I observed as you worked as a journalist, and I love the journalist in you. And what did you learn from that? How does that infuse your life?
Well, I went into journalism in pursuit of the truth. I was really interested in people's lives. I felt journalism was a place to change the world. I got interested in journalism by sitting in the back of the McGovern-Shriver airplane with all the journalists. And I thought to myself, wow, they're dictating what the people in the front are actually saying. They're actually broadcasting to the country, and the country is listening to their take on the story. So I saw very early on the power of television, the power of journalism to shape people's minds, to impact their hearts, to move culture, move society, impact politics. And so I wanted to move people's hearts and minds, but I didn't want to do it through politics. I wanted to do it through telling stories. I wanted to meet regular people. I wanted to go out and travel around and hear about people's lives and see, did they live behind padded doors? What was making them tick? How did they get over things that had happened in their lives? And it was a great place for me to be a storyteller. There were very few women, so I had grown up in a competitive family, so it was competitive. I was told I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do, so I liked that. I moved around. Every time someone told me no, I went around their back. I tried to do it. And it had a lot of ladders to work one's way up. But ultimately, it was a place to have an impact, and it was a place to meet people who were not only changing the world, but were changing their own lives. So when I lost my job, when I became First Lady, it was a crushing moment for me because I had worked for almost 30 years at that point, and it, went like that. And I think identity, this book fundamentally, I think, is about identity, who we are without the journalism, without the First Lady, without who you're married to, without the family that you're in. Who are you, as we were just discussing in the meditation, in your heart, in your core? And is that enough for you when the job goes away, when the marriage may go away, when you may come onto hard times? What's in here? And when my journalism job went away, first I was shocked. And then I was like, and I tried to turn the First Lady's job into a journalistic endeavor, But I loved journalism, and I still, go back to the Today Show and do pieces, but it's not the same at all as the journalism that I went into.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about what you say about who are you in here,
Yeah.
For you, you had to take away, I mean, you were at the top of a bunch of mountains. You weren't just, walking down the street and you're like, I'm gonna sit down. I mean, you were like a Kennedy. You were a Peabody Award-winning journalist. You were married to Arnold Schwarzenegger. You were a part of a family that created RED, Special Olympics, the Peace Corps. I mean, you had all these things that you were creating those things. And then you had to sit down and say, if you take all of that away, who am I?
I'm Patrick Schwarzenegger's mother. That's what happened, After all this work, that's what I have ended up with. It's like, go figure. No, but I mean, that's what I tried to do. Yeah, and I thought it's so ironic that this book comes out in the middle of White Lotus. I'm like, check, haha, God. Yeah. Patrick's like, is everybody asking about me? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God.
That is so funny.
So true.
Yeah, but you came around on all of this stuff with your healing.
Yeah.
It had a lot of different pieces to it.
Right.
Prayer, intuition, believing in your intuition, staying put, poetry. And I was really inspired, and I think everybody here when they read the book will be, about the different tools you grabbed onto to figure it out. And since we're in a church, it would only be fair if you read one of your poems called God, Are You Listening? Which I just really, really loved.
Okay. God, are you listening? How many times have I asked you, are you listening? Do you hear my whispers, my cries, my wails? Do you hear anything I say? Do you hear my rage? Do you read my mind? I speak to you most days. I don't want to bother you, don't want to impose, but I wonder if you're listening. Can you hear my cries? Do you feel my pain? Can you sense my heartbreak? Can you help me with my sorrow? Can you ease my regret? Can you tell me where I'm going, if I'm going to be okay? God, are you listening or keeping me at bay? I don't want to impose. I know you have a lot on your plate, but I'd love to know if you're listening to my prayers, to my whimpers, to my tears. Can't you hear me asking what it is you want me to do? I don't hear your answers, God. I can't hear your thoughts. Maybe you're just not listening. Maybe you just don't care. Maybe you're just too busy up there. But I'll keep talking. I'll keep praying because I have faith faith that you are listening to my prayers. So my faith is a huge part of my life.
I tried to wear every single cross I have tonight for you.
Every rosary I gave you, yeah.
You've given me.
I learned that from my grandmother, had extraordinary faith. And I remember as a young girl asking her, like, how she got that. I said, I want to get that. She goes, you just don't go out and get it. You have to, like, work at it. I'm like, okay, well, how do I work at it? And she would say, you come with me to church every day. I'm like, I don't think so. I'm like, I'm not going to church every day. But I found that, faith has always been in my heart, and the church has been a big part of my life in different intervals in different ways. I was educated by the nuns, educated by the Jesuits. I've bristled up against the church for its role with women, for its stance on birth control and many other issues that I have struggled with. With the church, although I love this Pope, but I have a deep and abiding relationship with God. I grew up with a righteous and judgmental God who I have turned into a loving, forgiving, gentle, compassionate God. That is the God, and in my mind, that God accepts everybody. That God is without judgment. That God accepts us all. And for me, that has been and is a guiding light in my life. I see myself as a child of God. I see myself here to do God's work. I see myself here to be of service to God. It's how I define myself on any given day. And I would say that my parents, I think, probably had a lot to do with that, because they were deeply religious people. They did go to Mass every single day, both of them together, until they died. And they saw their work in the Peace Corps and the War on Poverty and Head Start, Job Corps, all the programs that we hear kind of being under threat today. They thought they were doing God's work. Yeah. They thought they were doing social justice work. They thought they were here to change the world in that vein. And I think that I try to think of that in my women's health work, in my Alzheimer's advocacy, in much of the work that we did together. I feel that it's kind of coming from another place in a way. Yeah. Just like I think these poems came from another place for me. I read this great quote the other day when a poet was talking about writing, and he said, the goal for writing, whether it's poetry or anything else, is to get out of your head and get into your heart and really let God channel through you. Mm. And in many ways, I feel that's what happened in this book. Mm. I look down at some of the stuff and I'm like, I definitely did not write that. Honest to God, I really believe that. Wow. It was almost like I sit down and like something comes through me, and I believe that every single person can have that experience, because I believe writing in the quiet, writing from your heart, not your head, is really holy work. And I believe that it comes from a place that you don't even know. So much of the why I started writing poetry is it unveiled a different me to me. Mm. It unveiled a different voice to me, not the voice that was coming in with you, like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Yeah. This revealed, I'm scared. Yeah. I'm lonely. I'm ashamed.
Well, I've seen so much of you in different situations, and I remember when we went to India and we were going to you were going to talk the Dalai Lama into coming to the women's conference. Yeah. And which you succeeded at. Yes. But we were in, one of the things that you really wanted to do is go to the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah.
And it was an orphanage.
Yeah.
And we were both so moved by it. But I watched you really become a saintly person there.
Do you remember the woman that I met?
Maria.
Yeah.
Her name was Maria.
Yeah. And she told me her story there, that she had been engaged and she heard God's calling broke off her engagement, tried to explain it to her fiance, and joined the Missionaries of Charity and came to India.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and they were helping people who were left on the street without any limbs and could barely live. And what Maria said,
That Maria,
the nun said, is this child gives me more joy than I could ever give anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think of you that way. I think of that you have that in you, that you see the broken winged people. And I think the work you've done, it is so remarkable to me. And I know, I want you to read, if you would, please, on page 172. Here, I'll find it for you. Always a staffer.
No, I think it's, as I said, if you had told me several years ago that I would write a book of reporter poetry or poetry, I would have been like, oh my God, are you serious? So I'm not doing that. And I think that's what's so exciting about life and what I look forward to about life. I have a poem actually in there called Dear Life, that if one keeps asking questions, that's what I got from journalism of oneself. And the world that we live in, it takes you, your life can take you in so many different places and to so many different places. And this is kind of a place I never thought I would go. It's a book I never thought I would write. And yet it kept coming up over and over again. And when you talk about, when I go to do my journalism today, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
Even when I went to do the women's health thing with you, right? And we walked in, I was into the Oval Office, I was like, I'm not scared. I belong in here.
The Oval Office, she said.
I was like, we got this. We're going to do this. It's so clear. But this scared me. This voice scared me.
Okay, I want you to read this. I'm going to go into a lighter place in a second. But when you say this scared me, this is sort of what you were dealing with. Start here where it says read and then go to the end.
Always bossy.
I am so a staffer.
What is this?
So, this is called
Buried Inside. Start where? Here. Read.
I mean,
says.
go ahead.
Read, yes, ma'am. For the first time in my life, I realized what I had done. I had taken a part of me and split it off. And there she was. For the first time, I could hear the screaming, the yelling, the pounding. I could sense the rage, the anger. I felt this person was banging on walls, suffocating, screaming. I turned inward. I reached down. I opened the latch. No wonder I've struggled to be heard. I haven't heard myself. No wonder I've been frustrated, banging on the walls. It was me all along, raging at myself. I've been yelling, listen to me, hear me, let me out. I've been afraid of my gentle, tender self, the feeling me. I buried her to save me. No doubt she's angry, deservedly so. I'm so sorry, please forgive me. I finally hear you. It's safe to come out now.
That's heavy shit.
That's what?
That's heavy shit.
I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting.
All of us have
Yeah.
this person inside, this child. You hid that child. You protected that child. And you found yourself, really, your love as a mother.
Yeah,
and
something I was terrified of.
Yeah.
I was like, I loved my job. I didn't want to become a mother. I thought I'd be terrible at it. And it obviously turned out to be the greatest, once again, gift of my life. Everything that I have been terrified of has turned out to be the greatest thing in my life. So I'm hoping that this brings me closer to other people's pain. I hope this brings me closer to the child that other people have buried inside. I hope this brings me closer to other people's stories, because I know we all bury sides of ourselves in order to survive this thing called life, in order to please our parents, in order to be successful, in order to survive in marriages, whatever it is. And it's totally understandable, but it's also understandable to peel back the layers, take off the mask, take the door down, and have new dreams for yourself regardless of your age. As I say, I feel, I say all the time, I have 30-year-olds who come over to my house and they're like, I'm so old, I don't know what I'm doing, I feel so depressed, and I'm like, let's go. I am like on fire, and I feel like the work I have is meaningful. I really feel so grateful for my life, my children, like to hang with
Mama
me.
G.
Mama G, my grandchildren. I have the relationship that I manifested with Arnold that I'm really proud of. I have 4 brothers who adore me, and cousins, and I have a cousin that I'm going to make an appointment with. And I feel optimistic. I'm manifesting that, and I'm not there yet, but I'm manifesting. And I have a vision for our country that I'm also manifesting. And so I feel like I'm in many ways just getting going. I feel like I'm just like,
Yes.
yeah. So
I love that. The poets. I remember when at one of the women's conferences when Bono came and you finished your speech, because you always wrote, epic speeches, and people would, stay, for 3 days to listen to your speech.
Yeah.
And Bono said you were a poet.
And I thank you for reminding me of that. I had forgotten that, and that meant a lot to me. And I remember it wasn't until I was First Lady, I was actually at an event where a woman came up to me and said, oh, you're an artist. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. I think you have me confused with someone. She goes, no, you're an artist. And I said, no, I don't even paint. I'm not an artist. And she goes, your hair, your clothes, the way you talk. She goes, we're all artists. And I loved that because I was actually saying that to my daughter this morning. I said, you are an artist, and how you are designing your life is in an artistic way. How you're speaking, how you're dressing, how you're putting your room together, how you're moving through the world. You're moving through the world as an artist. And I do believe that it is the artist in all of us that will help kind of stitch our society back together, that will repair the relationships that are so broken between all of us. I think it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, it's this or that that's caused this polarization or divide that we're experiencing. But I think it's very much each of us are capable of weaving it back together if we tap into the artist in ourselves. And I really believe that we can hold the artist and the architect of change. They require different parts of us, but I think we're smart enough and wise enough and evolved enough to be able to be all of us, all of ourselves. We can be compassionate and fierce, strong and tender, powerful and weak. And one doesn't trump the other, one doesn't outdo the other. We need them all at different times in our lives. If we really, I believe, so for me, this book is really about love and loss. It's about grief, right, but no grievance. It's about taking control of your life, owning your life, and saying, this is my responsibility. It's my responsibility if I fall down to get back up. How I do that is my responsibility. It's my responsibility to help the country get back together. It's my responsibility, however you see your responsibility. And I'm excited about the responsibilities that I feel are on my plate. And I look forward to achieving them in different ways and with a different voice. And I now know I have the ability to have a tender side, but when I need the other side, I definitely, she's not asleep.
She's still there.
She's still there.
Okay, now you just completely, I can't even do my lightning round because you're like, you can have this and you can have that. But I wanted to ask you to choose one of these things. So I'm going to do a lightning round, but you don't have to choose. You could just say a word about each one. But we're out of time almost. But anyway, here's my lightning round.
Okay.
Mary Magdalene or Mother Teresa?
Mary Magdalene.
Okay. Emily Dickinson or Mary Oliver?
Mary Oliver. She's my girl.
Open ocean or open field?
Open field.
Journalism or poet? Journalist or poet?
Reporter poetry.
The Met or the California Museum?
The California Museum, of course. Well, we should actually have a California Museum ball.
That would be.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Okay, here's my last one. Celibacy.
Is Amanda here? She should get on that. That's a good idea.
Write that down.
Write that down.
Celibacy or sex again?
Oh, sex again.
Okay, I'm going to close.
You're evil.
I know. Okay, I'm going to close with this. I'm going to have you read something. This is
Oh
so.
my God.
It's so
Thank you.
hopeful.
Brought my glasses.
I know.
It's what?
So hopeful.
Oh, I hope the book is hopeful. I see the
It's
book.
totally hopeful.
Yeah, I want
Okay,
it to be really
read the
hopeful.
box. The thing I've put.
Read what?
The box there.
The box?
That part.
Oh, this.
Wait, this is say what
What's
it's
it-
called.
Wait a minute. What's it called?
It's called freedom.
Oh, freedom.
Freedom.
Freedom. It's true. There is a light beyond the darkness. There is clarity beyond and below the confusion. I could feel the strength in my body. My legs held me up as I gazed up towards the light, and it covered me. I never gave up searching. I never gave up trying. I never gave in. I put my hands over my heart, bowed my head, and whispered, "Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." You're free, Maria. All of that was then. This is you now. You made it home to yourself. I'm so proud. My child, you're so blessed. Welcome home. Hallelujah. Amen.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much.